So one of the most important 16th century HEMA treatises is that of Paulus Hector Mair, here. But was he full of shit? Hey folks, Matt Easton here, Schola Gladiatoria, and I'm here with Jeff Sy, who's here from Forte Swordplay in the United States, and he was heavily involved in the production of this book called Ars Athletica, which means the athletic arts, I guess, which is Latin, by Paulus Hector Mair. Okay, I often pronounce it wrongly, so please excuse me if I do. So, Paulus Hector Mair, who was he?
Civil servant in the late Middle Ages in Bavaria. I believe it was Augsburg. And there's a reason I talk to you, because you are far better at the history side than I am. So there are all sorts of details about his life, which, you know, there are other folks that kind of know this stuff better. But he's well known from, you know, in terms of source material for writing and really compiling a lot of the earlier sources from the German tradition into his own take on it. And I've been lucky enough to go to Austria. There's a library in Vienna which has one of the massive copies. It's actually bigger than this and actually in 2 volumes. And so literally when you go there and look at it, it's almost like looking at it like a spell book or something.
Do you want to give us a look inside while I just
sure.
blurb at them for a second? So the headlines that I would say as a sort of an outsider to the tradition is Mair was the first HEMA fanboy, in a sense, in that he was looking at older treatises, getting them, buying them with stolen money, which he embezzled from the state, and he did eventually hang, wasn't he? He was executed, I think.
He was hanged.
Yeah. So he was hanged for embezzling money from the city to buy fencing treatises. A man after my own heart. Not that I encourage you to engage in fraud, but anyway, he was a massive collector. And he collected treatises which possibly, and I think this is fair to say, wouldn't have survived if it wasn't for him embezzling the state. So go fraud for world benefit, world heritage benefit.
No one's perfect. No one's perfect.
So he collected these old things like, I think, Codex Wallenstein. Possibly he had 133 at some point.
I think that may be true. I think also Jörg Wilhelm, Rast, a number of these sort of Augsburg group of sources. So
if you've ever wondered why, you know, in the world of martial arts, why do we have a whole bunch of books from Germany surviving to the modern day when lots of other stuff's been lost? Well, one of the answers is Paulus Hector Mair, is because he saved them, collected them, in some cases rebound them, and the other interesting thing, he tried to recreate this stuff. So there's literally techniques from older treatises, you know, 14th, 15th century, bearing in mind he's in the middle of the 16th century, and he recreates them in his own book, doesn't he? In his clothes of his time. So you see like techniques from 133, for example, sword and buckler, but he's there in his 16th century clothes doing it with a sword and buckler, his interpretation. And it doesn't mean it was right, because he had many of the same challenges as us.
Absolutely.
So he was trying to look at, let's say, a 14th or 15th century book and go, oh, well, you know, this is how this technique works. Doesn't mean he was right. It just means that's a 16th century person's interpretation of it.
Absolutely.
And now we're doing it in the 21st century. So to answer the question that I opened with, is it good? Is it a good book? Has it got good stuff in it? Do you think he got it right? Do you think he was misguided? How useful is this as a treatise?
So let me begin by saying the thing that I think all interpreters should say, which is, we don't know. There's no way to be sure, right? So, and unless we invent a time machine, we will possibly never be sure. That being said, I think there's a lot of things that we can, through the process of interpretation, still come up with like valuable insights into, okay, well, these are things that are worth trying. And some things that we try are actually maybe higher likelihood than other things. So, you know, you know, you and I have been around doing this for a long time. So in the span of doing this for like 20, 25 years, I think we've learned a lot of lessons about not only, because when you start out, it's very easy to say, oh, there's text there, there's image there. Let me come up with a good interpretation that makes this all make sense. Doing that on an individual level for each technique can be challenging for sure, depending on the technique. But the even greater challenge is once you come up with a series of interpretations, do they fit together in some sort of actual tactical framework? And that's when you, and this is where, like, if you can get a bunch of these techniques that actually fit together tactically, then that really speaks more to the validity of things. Like, it's a lot easier to think that you've got something that is sort of a fighting art. So that being said, I will say the first 5 techniques in Paulus Hector Mair are in fact the master cuts, the Meisterhau that we talked about on a separate video. And so when I started this project, one of the things I was really attracted to being part of it was like, hey, there's another take on the master cuts by someone. Is there something new to learn? And man, are they hard to figure out. They sometimes you'll come across sources and sort of question the validity or sanity or sobriety of the author because it just sounds like they're spouting gibbering nonsense potentially. So having having done this for a while, I think one of the things that really gives you longevity as an interpreter is to really be ready to give the source, the author, as much like give them the benefit of the doubt as much as you can, and to not get super married to an interpretation. Like there's just so many things, I don't know about you, but over the course of 20-25 years, there are definitely things that I've evolved my thinking on after like iterating, through lots of input from lots of different perspectives and all this stuff. And long story short, I think Paulus Hector Mair has a bunch of stuff that is new insight, new perspective that we have not had the real tools to try to crack until relatively recently. And we would not have gotten there to have these tools if we had not followed this process of like iterative improving our understanding of just what the fundamentals are for the German longsword. So without going into the gory details, and I've already gone into some of those details in some of my videos, and more of that's going to be coming.
Check out Jeff's channel, by the way. I'll put a link down below.
Yep, thank you. So some of the key takeaways, I think, are what he writes is very gappy in terms of, if you were to expect like a very thorough list of steps required for each particular technique, he's writing a very sparse explanation. So there's a lot that he's not saying. And so then the question is, well, how do you intuit what those gaps are? And again, this is where the benefit of having a entire system where you've really worked out the fundamentals in terms of blade work and footwork, then you can fill in those gaps in a way that's not cherry picking. You can fill it in with a way that is self-consistent, and then like you just kind of steadily work through all of the different permutations of, okay, do you cut this way? Do you cut that way? Are there certain cutting patterns we haven't tried yet? And there is a way to actually come up with interpretations that actually really make these explanations make sense and realize how much he's actually potentially not saying.
So what I'm taking from what you're saying is that this is probably not the best standalone source, but used as a building block in looking at the wider Lichtenau or German martial arts lineage. It is an important element. And he's also very important because it's a 16th century person's interpretation on working with external sources, which is something we very rarely find in HEMA, because usually it is a fencing master telling you about their system. In this case, it's someone who's not a fencing master, he's a fencing enthusiast telling you about other people's fencing systems, and multiple different systems as well. So I think it's an interesting extra sort of perspective and angle we get to look at these things, isn't it?
Yes.
Can you just tell us very briefly about this book, because I think it's available, isn't it?
It is hopefully soon to be available. It's definitely available for pre-order at this point. We're working through issues with the printers, as far as I'm aware. But the longsword book, this is only longsword, and it's pretty hefty. It's over 100 techniques right in here, and each technique has several stages and plays usually. I would say like 4 to 5 things happening in every play. So longsword is available. Dusak should be not far behind, and then beyond that, we'll have additional volumes, generally of several weapon forms at a time. I put out a little bit of a poll on one of my videos of, hey, tell us which weapon form you're the most interested in. So for everybody who loves sickle, That's coming, don't worry. But
Sickle, that's right.
Sickle.
The thing that you harvest crops with or grass with, that is one of the weapons. And in fact, one of the things that I think Paulus Hector Mair, you've seen his images on lots of my videos, he's most famous for, is he tries to include as many diverse things in his treatise as possible.
Yeah.
So as Jeff said, you know, longsword is a very big bit, but he's also got dagger, he's got halberd, he's got poleaxe, he's got sickle, he's got dussac, loads of...
Don't forget scythe.
Scythe, yes, that's right. Yeah, all kinds of farming weapons, big wooden log, big wooden
right.
club, and loads of stuff. So when that book comes out, check it out. That's the longsword part. That's volume 1. There will be future volumes. But overall, you should know about Paulus Hector Mair, because he's a very important European martial arts source who we often refer to and show in images. So hopefully you know a little bit more about him now than you did before.
Yeah.
Anyway, Jeff, thanks a lot for giving us that explanation and joining us.
Yeah.
Hope I'll see you back on the channel really soon. And don't forget to check out the link down below to Jeff's channel, where you can find a lot more in-depth stuff on some of the things we've spoken about here. Cheers, folks. Thanks for watching. We've got extra videos on Patreon. Please give our Facebook a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Cheers, folks.